Bramble was the smallest bear in the forest, but he owned the most magical honey jar ever seen. It sat in a corner of his cozy tree stump house, glowing softly with tiny sparkles floating around it. Every morning, Bramble polished the jar carefully with a soft piece of moss cloth until it gleamed. Every night, he whispered to it, and the jar always answered with a cheerful little plink. He could never eat the last spoonful, for as long as one remained, the jar would stay sweet. Then one wild autumn evening, a huge storm crashed into the forest, with wind roaring through the trees. Suddenly, a knock. Outside stood a tiny rabbit named Clover, shivering under a dripping leaf. "Of course," Bramble said kindly, wrapping her in a warm blanket and making her sweet honey tea. Soon his house was packed with a hedgehog, 2 mice, and a freezing owl with wet feathers. Bramble looked at the honey jar. Only 3 glowing spoonfuls remained inside, swirling slowly like tiny suns. His paws tightened around the jar. Grandmother said never use the last spoonful. Never, ever. But the mice were trembling. The owl looked exhausted, and Clover's stomach rumbled with hunger. So Bramble made a choice. 1 spoonful went into warm porridge, and 1 into golden tea. And the very last spoonful he drizzled across tiny honey cakes for everyone to share together. The moment the final drop disappeared, the magical glow vanished. The jar became still and empty. Still, he smiled while everyone ate happily, the little house filled with laughter and warmth. The next morning, sunlight sparkled on every leaf. Bramble sighed, picking up the empty, ordinary jar. Then, plink, the jar suddenly glowed, and tiny golden sparkles burst from inside, floating out the window. Hundreds of bees poured fresh, shimmering honey into the jar, as his friends watched with happy smiles. The jar's magic was never the honey, an old bee buzzed. It was the kindness that filled it. From that day on, Bramble never worried about using the last spoonful again, because somehow, whenever he shared the honey with someone in need, the magical jar never stayed empty for long.